Oops. Alright, hello guys, and welcome to another video of General Understanding. My name is Vic7, and today I'm going to start a new video series for General Understanding called Intro to the Napoleonic Wars. If you don't know what the Napoleonic Wars are just a series of wars that have mostly similar names, known as War of the Whatever Coalition. And they are named the Napoleonic Wars because it was mainly fought between Napoleonic France, aka France under the rule of Napoleon I, or Napoleon Bonaparte, the legendary French commander. And this was pretty much against almost all the other countries of Europe. And this was in the late 18th and early 19th century. So let's start, and this first video is going to be the wars of the First and the Second Coalition. So let's begin with that. Alright guys, so this is the Prelude, the first slide, and this is going to be the French Revolution and the rise of Napoleon. So first we have to understand who Napoleon is. Napoleon, or was in this case, Napoleon Bonaparte is widely known as one of the best military commanders in modern history, and also to be one of the shortest in terms of height. That is not true. The second part is not true, because that was actually a extremely successful, in retrospect, extremely successful British ad campaign to bring down Napoleon's morale and his allies' morale, to show that he's short, in the sense that the British, were big and he was short, so then they could pretty much outmatch him anywhere. That's not true. Napoleon in real life was actually about 5'4", 5'6", so he was not short, but he wasn't extremely tall either. So that was a British propaganda campaign. Napoleon, anyhow, was still an amazing military commander, and that greatness, that fame, is credited to his constant wars in the late 18th and early 19th century. So let's cover these conflicts that have collectively been known to be the Napoleonic Wars. So before the Napoleonic Wars, or what actually began, that era actually began, you had the French Revolution. The French Revolution was a result of the Enlightenment, and it was actually after the American Revolution, inspired by the American Revolution, and it was an explosion of the tension that was building up in France up until that point. So that was the royalty doing pretty much whatever they wanted to, and the people suffering the most. And so that was what the French Revolution was all about. And the rise of Napoleon is actually during the wars that ensued, the few conflicts that ensued. That's what Napoleon's, that's how he rose to power and fame, is because he was a French military commander during the Revolution who put down the rebellion in Paris and came out a hero, and he fought many brilliant campaigns that we're going to talk about just now. So let's see that. Alright, so the War of the First Coalition. So after the declaration of war between the Prussians and the Austrians, so Marie Antoinette and King Louis XVI. So first you have to understand who is Marie Antoinette and these guys. So King Louis XVI was actually the King of France during the Revolution. Well, kind of the King of France. And he was arrested along with his wife, the Queen of France. Marie Antoinette was actually the sister of the Archduke of Austria and Holy Roman Emperor at the time, Leopold II. And when they were arrested, and when the Jacobin Club, aka the ruling, extremely dictator, people who were crazy, basically. Robespierre, if you ever heard of him. He was the guy who came up with the whole idea of the guillotine, the reign of terror, where everybody was practically executed. Yeah. So those guys were the ones who captured the Queen and the King, and the Prussians and the Austrians, two of the immediate German states, the emperors, Frederick William II, and Holy Roman Emperor and Archduke of Austria, Leopold II, both jointly said that if anything happened to the King and Queen, they would wage war against the French. Now, the French, like I said, was ruled by the crazy Jacobin club, who didn't think before doing anything, and instead of the Prussians and Austrians initially declaring war, the French declared war instead on the Austrians, and the coalition went on the attack. So the coalition under the Duke of Brunswick of Prussia began their first attack towards France, and they actually managed to try to invade France. However, even though the French army was severely depleted thanks to the revolution they've been through for a long time, 1792, the Duke of Brunswick, Ferdinand, was defeated by the French army under Dumouriez at the key battle of Valmy, and then the French went on the offensive, and they started taking land, and a lot of land was ceded to the French in the form of Belgium and northern Italy. So there were three fronts originally. Before Belgium was taken and formed into the puppet state, the Batavian Republic, and during the Battle of Valmy, that's when France went on the offensive and started to try to take the Low Countries, which included Belgium and the Netherlands, what we now call the Netherlands. There was a second front that was in the heartland of Germany. So that was from getting from France all the way to the influential German states. That includes the Rhineland, the eastern bank of the Rhine, and some areas of the territories of Westphalia and Baden and Württemberg, etc., etc. So there's that. And then finally, there was a last front that was in northern Italy, in the Austrian holdings in Italy. And that's when our hero, Napoleon, was assigned, who was now promoted, and he was sent to northern Italy. And he had an extremely successful campaign in which he took a lot of land in northern Italy, and that's how he started getting to fame, getting to power, etc., etc. Right? After these initial losses, the First Coalition, as we now know it, and the War of the First Coalition officially began after a lot of different key influential European countries joined the coalition of Prussia and Austria against the French. Right? And this actually happened a year after the Battle of Valmy in 1793 and 1794, when the Bourbon French and Queen, Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI, were officially executed. And the First Coalition was actually the nations of Spain, the Kingdom of Naples, the Duchy of Austria, the Kingdom of Prussia, the Tsardom of Russia. Prussia and Russia, they sound similar, but Prussia is German, Russia is, Russian. And Britain, Great Britain, and some other states that were, allied with the First Coalition, like the Papal States and some other small parts, and France and her holdings as their opposition, practically. But then, there was a lot of stunning French victories, especially in the Southern Theater with Napoleon, and this action helped keep going on for about 5 years. So 5 years since 1792, 1797, 1798, 1797 is actually when the war ended. And throughout this time, there were stunning French victories and practically extremely shocking coalition losses. And so, all the nations, other than Britain, sued for peace because they were like, we can't fight these guys any longer and not lose territory. And then Britain continued the war. So Britain was like, nah. And the reason was basically because Britain wasn't on the mainland. There was the British Isles. And so they weren't so worried about, France taking all the holdings, because France would have to cross the English Channel, which meant naval combat, and the British were the best navy in the world. But Napoleon, who was actually now a really famous guy in France, had different ideas. He decided that who was now promoted, obviously, he decided he was going to do a campaign in Malta and Egypt, which was kind of like Britain's huge colonies in northern Africa and the Middle East, and that's where tons of oil and the Suez Canal and the Ottoman Empire was, and that was an area that the British really wanted, and he started harassing the British there. So let's move on to the aftermath of the War of the First Coalition, and the beginning of the War of the Second.